Hi, this is Jennifer Minster for SavannahNow.com, and in this edition of Local Music Now, we're talking to Howard Paul. Thank you very much for letting me come here and see the plant and talk to you. But first, let's talk a little bit about when and why you started playing the guitar.
Sure. I started when I was 4 years old. My aunt was a world traveler, and she had a guitar, and she left it in my house when she took off for a month or two to go to India, I think. And I just fell in love with the instrument.
Yeah.
And so I got a guitar at 4, and for my 5th birthday, I got a guitar teacher.
Yeah.
And started taking lessons from there.
Oh, that's amazing.
I started playing jazz when I was 10 through a local great jazz saxophone player that was my age, young virtuoso.
Oh.
So we started a jazz quartet at 10 years old. By 13, we were playing professionally.
That's amazing.
So it's a long background in it.
Why jazz and not more of like a rock and roll type thing?
It was just more interesting to me at the time. I started out, I guess, playing Beatles music like most people my age did. And I don't want to say it's boring music, but from a music standpoint, it just was much more interesting to me to play. What was popular at the time and what we were studying as 10-year-old kids was mostly Dave Brubeck and Miles Davis and Charlie Parker stuff. So
very cool.
So I was introduced to jazz because it was interesting. And I had to keep up. So I sort of spent a lot of time working.
Now, over the years, you have done many things. You have a very impressive career with an Army captain and business executive and stuff like that. Why do you make the time to play music? Why is it important for you to fit that in?
Well, I think I've made time to join the Army and made time to have a business background, but I've never had to make time for music. That's always, I think, been the most important thing in my life. And everything else I've done, because it's very difficult to just play music for a living. Because it can be a very hard life, particularly as a jazz musician. So everything else I've done just as great experiences and sort of as a day job, but my career, I think, was always based in music.
Well, let's talk about this career. We're here at
Benedetto Guitars.
Benedetto Guitars.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about the company and how and why you got involved.
Bob Benedetto is considered to be the premier jazz guitar maker in the world. He's been making guitars since 1968, and I became a customer of his in 1995 when I finally started to make enough money to be able to afford a Benedetto. And back then, it was a 3.5 year to 5 year wait for a guitar. So you ordered one, paid a deposit, and waited for years for the instrument to be available. During the years that I was waiting for my guitar, I became good friends with Bob and his wife, Cindy, who was also part of the company. And by the late 90s, I was helping them organize concerts. By 1999, he had signed a contract agreement or a licensing agreement with Fender Musical Instruments, the biggest guitar manufacturer in the world. And so they made Benedetto guitars from 99 to 2006. And during that whole time, I was performing on Benedetto guitars, became an endorser of Benedetto guitars. When Bob decided to leave Fender in 2006 and start his own company, I was the guy that had a business background and was a jazz guitarist. So he came to me to help him establish a company that was focused on jazz guitar but still run like a business. So it was just an opportunity for me to combine two things that I loved.
I bet it's great to come to work every day and see this, and it's amazing the play and everything.
It's a fun job.
Yeah, very cool. Well, going back to the music, you play a lot around the country. You'll have a couple shows coming up in April. Tell us where people can find out more about you and the music and everything.
I don't do a lot of club dates anymore, but every now and then I like to be able to keep my fingers in it. So I think the first and second Friday in April, I'll be working with Eric Jones's quartet at Blowin' Smoke. And the last Friday in April, the first Saturday in May, I'll be at the Jazz Corner. I'm featured at the Jazz Corner usually about a half a dozen times a year. And I often bring in legendary guitar players from around the country to join me on stage. So April 30th, May 1st, I'll have Joe Negri
Yeah.
joining me on stage with Ben Tucker.
That's awesome. Very cool, guys.
And I'll have Bucky Pizzarelli back at the Jazz Corner in
Oh.
the fall with me. So you can usually keep an eye on the Jazz Corner
Yeah.
schedule to know when I'm
Okay, very cool. And where can we find out a little bit more about Benedetto?
BenedettoGuitars.com.
Okay.
And we have a news page that we update pretty much every day.
Very cool.